Hello, Laura here again. In this video, I wanted to thank you for watching. First off, in this video, I wanted to talk about my experiences at meetings, assemblies, and the conventions. Now, back in the early 2000s, when I started going, there was no TVs yet. It was all books. No TVs at the front of the hall, yet. They had a website, but it wasn't the current one that they advertise so much now. I was very regular at the meetings. I rarely missed a meeting. And at the Sunday meetings, when I went at that time, the public talks were an hour long. And even though it was funny, or even though it was a public talk, how you would rarely see people from the public come. Like, unless it was somebody's Bible study or a return visit. That was... And the Jehovah's Witnesses was really my first exposure to religion, period, in my life. So I'd have to admit, for the first little bit, the idea of paradise earth, peace and security, and getting rid of all these religions that they always told us all of them are wrong except for us. It all seemed like a really nice idea at first. There were definitely cliques in the congregation. The Pioneer Sisters, elders. I knew there were definitely some brothers and sisters that were extremely selective about who they talked to and socialized with. For sure, I knew of a few sisters that were pretty snobby. Not really much of a godly spirit, so to say. And I even noticed how some of the brothers, they didn't have the greatest qualities and personalities to be elders or ministerial servants. I think they were more just given those positions because they needed men. Only men could hold positions like that. You would never see a woman get up to speak. There's a lot of, in the JW theology, they have a lot of words that a lot of churches use them. You would never hear that in a JW meeting, like Trinity, faithful and discreet slave, the truth, just to name a few. After a few years, I really started to pick up on how restrictive it all was, because they micromanage everything from how you dress, who you can talk to, who you cannot talk to, what kind of hairstyles you can have, and just, very, what you can watch and what you can't watch, what you can read, what music you can listen to. Oh, there's so much. They would even more or less encourage the idea of brothers and sisters finding jobs that can really suit and work around their schedule so that they can attend all the meetings. So as a result, a lot of the brothers and sisters were self-employed. They had their own businesses going, and I believe they did that so that they could make as many meetings as possible. There weren't very many that went to work for companies. There was very heavy emphasis on the preaching work. Part of the midweek meetings were just nothing about that, just teaching skills and how to overcome like conversation stoppers at the doors, and just how to slowly, you can never preach enough. You got to keep preaching, just do more, keep reaching out. Like, so they essentially taught that works is more important than faith. Because how good of a standing you had in a congregation and before Jehovah God was much more important based on your works than your faith. So there was so many meetings. When I went, there was 3 days a week we had to go to the meeting. Our midweek meeting was usually on Tuesdays. The book study I went to was usually on Thursdays and the Sunday. And there's so many meetings, and you have to study for these meetings. There's lots of books and magazines to go over that you constantly had to, like, at one time there were 2 Watchtowers and 2 Awakes coming out every month, and they were like 31 pages long each. So that was a lot, plus personal prayer, personal study, like so much to. But then now I see the idea is to keep you so busy that you don't really have time to think about much else, like. Oh man. And it was the meetings, I definitely saw after many years it fits the definition of a term called fog. F for fear, O for obligation, G for guilt. In other words, fear, like Armageddon is coming every day. You got to make sure you're doing enough. Like obligation, like what would they say? You're blood guilty if you don't help others to come to the truth and into Jehovah's organization. And that went along with guilt too, like guilty into going out in service and just trying to be your best. And I have to admit, when we had campaigns where in service, when we would pass out invitations to the memorial and for conventions coming up, the results were usually always the same. Nobody would come. I mean, like no random member of the public would show up. It was the same as the meetings. It was only if, like, it was a Bible study or maybe somebody's family member or friends. Like, it was like same with the CO visit and the memorial. Like there were ones that like you would never see them at most of the meetings, but come memorial and the circuit overseer visit, then you would definitely see those. And to see those ones there. And I noticed there was a lot of families that raised their kids in the truth. A lot of them had very heavy control over their kids, like helicopter parents, very strict. Like, I knew of a few: no cable, no Disney movies, no outside books, like, and quite a few were homeschooled. And that was really to keep them away from worldly kids, that worldly influence. And just, oh man, I couldn't have imagined growing up with that much strictness about every move I make. And over the years, the members the JWs that had Bible studies, I saw some come and go. The majority I noticed would study for a short period, and they usually got them to come to a couple meetings. But I noticed after a short period, the studies would just abruptly stop. And my brothers and sisters, like, who were conducting the study, would just say that they were, they didn't have the right heart condition, but it was really that once their study hit the point of trying to put more heavy indoctrination on them, like all the changes that they have to make, which is a lot, they were like, oh man, forget this, bye. So yeah, no, I saw a very, most of the studies didn't really last like long term, or no. Oh yeah. I personally, I never had any studies. I never got anybody to come to the meetings, and to be honest, I'm not ashamed. Not at all. It doesn't bother me. Okay, that's the meetings. Now, conventions. Oh man. I attended conventions when there were no TVs. It was just talks all day long. Man, I think I used to just take notes all day long. I think honestly it was just really just one way to cope with how long it was. I tended to always end up with people who liked to arrive to the conventions very early, to wait at the doors till when the doors were first opened, and there was always a crowd. Like, it was never lineups, it was always crowds waiting at the doors, and as soon as they would open, you would see everybody running because they wanted to get good seats, or they had elderly or disabled, so they needed certain seats for easy access. Like, wow. See, like, I have seen Christians running and fighting, where witnesses like running to put all the stuff in each seat to reserve them. Wow. And at the conventions, I saw a lot of inappropriate hairstyles, outfits. One thing for me was always the heels, like improper dress shoes. I've always worn very modest dress shoes. I've never worn high heels. Like, the highest I've worn is like 3 inches, maybe 2.5. Though, you get the idea. And I felt bad for the young kids at the conventions all day, especially before the TVs. Because they can do activities, but it has to be quiet. Like, so they can only like draw or look at a book. Like, they can't be watching videos. One thing, I don't know what all the excitement was about around those live dramas when they would have a stage set up, and then they would, brothers and sisters with like these costumes and fake beards, and they would lip sync to a live audio. Frankly, I always thought they were lame. Kind of boring. They didn't really excite me all that much. The most exciting moment I ever had at a convention was, there was a thunderstorm during one of them at the day, and we lost power for like 10 seconds, so it was completely dark. That was kind of exciting. Nothing, man. Like, these conventions and assemblies, like, all the interviews were, but they would always pick like pioneers or like ministerial servants or missionaries, the ones who had done more, and it was always just a lot like like how they sacrifice to pursue the full-time work or go to another country. Like, I would have been more impressed if they interviewed an average Jehovah's Witness. You know, pioneer, do more, keep reaching out, you know, push, push, push. Like, you're never doing enough, you're never quite good enough. Assemblies, it's same idea, talks all day, just at smaller buildings. The one thing I always thought was ridiculous was they would read the accounts report near the end of the day at each of the assembly day, and there was always a deficit, like how much donations compared to, and then even the amount they said it like that they needed to collect is like, yeah, there is no way that this building could cost that much to run for one weekend. Oh man. The you know, I can happily say over the years, over my entire all the years I was in, I know for certain that the amount I donated in total was not very much, because over the years, especially the last couple of years I was in, it was at zero. But I would say it was definitely, I would say my total donations for all those years was in between 500 to 1,000, definitely under 1,000, because most of the time I would only put in a 10 or a 5 and a few coins. I rarely put in a 20. I am almost 100% certain that I never put a 50 or 100 in the donation boxes. So, you know, I'm relieved that I never donated all that much, really. You know, looking back, I can really recognize the hold that they have on a lot of the members. It's definitely a form of mind control and programming. You don't see it right away. That's what makes it mind control. You don't see it right away, and they put positive spins on it, and then they add the fear mongering to it. So it's like they really think it's all great, that they're pleasing Jehovah, that this is the best way to live. Like the ones that are heavier into it, they're really into it. The fear the organization has on them, they definitely have a persecution complex. Like their view that the more persecuted they are, the more that they believe that they have the truth or the right religion. Oh yeah, like that's kind of twisted. And after a few years, I quickly noticed already that topics tended to repeat the subjects, and especially a lot of the scriptures, they would cherry pick a lot of scriptures. Like, there's lots of verses in the Bible. Why do we always have to focus on one of the same, like the same selection? And you know, there's just, when you come out, you really see it more than ever, that there's a few examples I've seen, like they're dangling that carrot in front of you, Jehovah in paradise, you know, but behind they're hitting you with a bat and with a nail in it to keep you going, like the fear mongering, like Satan, demons, Armageddon is right around the corner. And, you know, the reason you don't know that you've been lied to, conditioned, is brainwashed is because you've been lied to, conditioned, and brainwashed. You know, and just one other point to add, just if your religion teaches you not to question anything, and then they're hiding stuff from you. And Jehovah's Witnesses definitely do this. They tell you, do not research anything them outside of their own literature. Don't even Google Jehovah's Witnesses. So they're hiding something. And to just finish off, I wanted to share a few pictures of way back when. And just this is one of the best pictures of me that's ever been taken. I was at one of the conventions. You can kind of see the badge there on the left. That was me at another convention. One of the closer to the last convention that I attended, I was at the conventions where they showed the bunker videos. Oh yeah, I was there. And that one. Very pretty. I like that dress. I still have that. I still have those dresses. Oh yeah, that's one thing I forgot to mention. I was the year they had the bunker videos at the convention. I was at that convention, and even at that convention, that was when I was already a PMO, and I was sitting there like, this is fear-mongering, this is twisted, this is propaganda. Like, this really isn't right. And how many sitting there at the convention would not, you're not taught to think. You're not taught to critically think about stuff. Just obey. Just obey us. We know what's best. You have the truth. This is the best way to live. Just no. No, it's not. There's definitely a lot of life and happiness and love on the outside. I'd like to thank everybody that watched. Hit like and subscribe if you want. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.